most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to The Bruce Montalvo Show, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to The Bruce Montalvo Show on LA Talk Radio. I'm your host, investigative journalist, Bruce Montalvo, and it's Sunday, March 31st, 2013, and I'd like to wish everyone a happy Easter and Passover. Ladies and gentlemen, we are broadcasting from the beautiful city of Los Angeles here in Los Angeles, California. You can listen to us on the station that leaves no listener behind. That's KCAA 1050 AM, NBC News Radio, and you could be sure to go to kcaaradio.com, and also be sure to listen to us on the Guerrilla Media Network. That's guerrillamedianetwork.com. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my guest on today's broadcast really needs no introduction. She is a veteran activist, having founded the Bohemian Grove Action Network. Her activism started, ladies and gentlemen, in the 1960s with the Civil Rights Movement, and the founding of the network in the 1980s. She has since worked alongside other protesters in the Occupy movement and helped many journalists, such as myself, get exposure, who have devoted their time and effort to exposing the 1%. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend and the founder of the Bohemian Grove Action Network. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mary Moore to the broadcast. Hello, Mary. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Bruce.
It's great to have you on. Now, Mary, tell our listening audience that's never heard of the Bohemian Grove, tell them a little bit about this two-week encampment for the world's power elite.
Well, it's probably there are many places where the elites of this world gather and have for years, but this is probably the longest running gathering. It's from the 1880s is when it started.
Right.
And it starts with a very bizarre ceremony, which usually catches people's attention, called the cremation of care. Mm-hmm. These are the men who claim that they carry the cares of the world around on their backs. Some of us would disagree with that. But they feel that in order to have a 2-week vacation, which is really what this is, it's always the last 2 weeks of July that they gather in Monte Rio at a place called Bohemian Grove, and that they have to burn dull care in order to put down their cares and have a good time.
Right.
Symbolically, it's a very it's ridden with all kinds of interpretations, let me put it that way. And I would like to say to anybody after this interview is over, if you do go to Google Bohemian Grove, you will find various approaches to exposing them. We are not the Alex Jones conspiracy folks. We are the people who are trying to make the point that these men are making every day, twice a day, public policy talks they call the lakeside talks. And they're often talks that are of no importance at all, but often they are major speakers, which are basically public policy talks without any public scrutiny. Right. So that is what we have focused on. We are more concerned about their impact on the outside world than whether they're running around up there in pink tutus and all the other things that are alleged to be there for them to be doing.
Right. Now, the group was founded in the 1870s, I believe, right, by a very mysterious man by the name of Henry Edwards, I believe?
Well, the beginning of it, we don't spend a lot of time on because it wasn't really until the 1920s that the big names, they've always been men of wealth.
Right.
But, people like Mark Twain, people that, had a little, maybe rich bohemians, had a little of that bohemian fight against the system in them. But it wasn't until the 20s when people like Hearst came in. There's kind of a symbiotic relationship between the arts and money. a lot of people that focus on the theater and painting and stuff like that are usually don't have a lot of money until they get very successful. So they need sponsors, which is where the money people come in. And so there's kind of that relationship. Well, by the 1920s, the Bohemian Club was less bohemian and much more moneyed, and it's gotten worse ever since. So we don't focus a lot on the original.
I got you. Yeah, you guys focus on really the talks and how they're violating, Congress, right, with it getting together and formulating a policy at this place.
And we also focus a lot of attention on the various camps. There's 127 separate camps in this grove. They have allegedly about 2,000 members. Now, obviously, not all the members come at the same time.
Right.
Each member is allowed every summer to bring a guest. So that would mean that if they all were there at the same time, 4,000 people. But for a lot of these men, they're busy out destroying the universe,
exactly.
And they don't have time to come. So often the real big ones don't come until they deliver a lakeside talk. And there's usually a reason for them to be there, a political reason or something like that.
Right.
Every Republican president since Coolidge has been a member of the Grove. However, the sitting presidents seldom come because the security and all of that they'd have to put up with. That doesn't mean it's never happened. It's just not common for a sitting president. But, boy, people like Henry Kissinger are, very enthusiastic fans of this group, and they come all the time.
He's part of Mandalay, right?
Go ahead.
He's part
Pardon?
of the... Sorry, Mary, he's part of the Mandalay camp, right?
Well, thank you for that. I was about to explain the pecking order within the camps. Like I said, there's 127 camps. Some of them are of no importance at all. They're what they call men of use, and that would fall into the musicians. I'll get into a little bit of that further on.
Right.
But the Mandalay camp that you mentioned is one of the most prestigious. Another one would be Hillbillies Camp. The names are kind of ridiculous, so,
right.
Just try to bear with me. That would have been the Bush Camp. Another one, Owl's Nest. That would be Ronald Reagan's camp. Richard Nixon was, you'll love this, Caveman Camp. So it's all kind of silly, and we try to let people understand that often these camps reflect the circles these men run in.
Right. Absolutely. I've stated many times that it's like a sick and twisted playground for the elite, right, Mary?
Yeah, it's where they can get away, they feel, from public scrutiny, which is kind of where we come in. We started in 1980. If anything, we can put that public scrutiny piece back by being outside the gates. They don't like the attention. They really don't like the attention. I'm sure maybe some egos get stroked by it, but they'd rather that they could just recreate in peace and quiet.
Exactly.
So the one thing we can do, but we don't just stand there and protest. There's a purpose. We're trying. The whole point, our whole goal has always been to educate the public about how the system works. It's not the way you learned it in civics. We can't just elect representatives and assume that they aren't going to get corrupt from access to money and power.
Right.
And and there's the degrees of how that corruption works, but it's not that complicated. I probably don't need to explain that to your listeners.
Oh, right.
It's just a way in other words, we're using them to make a point. We're not trying to get them to go away. We're not trying to get them to shut down the Grove. There would be no point in that. They would simply go somewhere else.
Right.
So we just use them to make the point about, folks, this is how decision-making happens. The ideas get floated, and the next year you start to see often in many cases, you see the implementation of those ideas. For example, what we're making a book. This gives me a chance to get this out. We are in the process of creating a book, which should be done by July, that is going to feature on 33 years of the Lakeside Talks.
Wow.
I found in my archives the complete transcript of Caspar Weinberger's speech in 1981. He was, as the older people will remember, the defense secretary for Ronald Reagan at the time. His speech was on rearming America. That was in 1981. By 1982, the arms buildup had begun. It's a perfect example of the point we're making. It's certainly not the case in all the speeches, but there's enough of them. For example, in 1997, Supreme Court Justice Scalia, the people who aren't supposed to even be involved in politics, spoke up there on church, state, and the Constitution. Well, now, wouldn't you love to know what he said about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's going to be in your book, right?
Yes.
Excellent.
So we don't know. We very seldom get the only speeches we've ever gotten the transcript of is that Caspar Weinberger one I just mentioned and a partial one of Henry Kissinger's. They don't share that with us. Mm-hmm. So mostly, but it's bad enough to just know who it is and what the subject is, and it kind of makes the point. If people do go to, we have a couple of websites, but if they do go to SonomaCountyFreePress.com and click on the highlights of the Lakeside Talks, those are just some examples from 1980 through 2000 that people can get an idea. And it kind of makes the case all by itself.
Really, it does. Now, Mary, you came out of retirement last year to organize the Creation of Care, as you guys dubbed it, the Creation of Care March. Now, tell our listening audience about that march and your interview.
Well, actually, the Creation of Care was an event. The march got somewhat hijacked by some right-wingers that of the Alex Jones persuasion. I am not very fond of this man. He's a little crazy, very... I guess he calls himself libertarian, but I think that's a shame for real libertarians. But he has all kinds of conspiracy theories, and
that's
so
why
we
I
don't,
took offense, Mary, to their public trashing of what was supposed to be a peaceful protest. And that man that we're referring to, ladies and gentlemen, is Mark Dice, a complete.
That's correct.
Forgive my language, Mary, but a complete ass. You know what I mean? He just made a
No, they were very
mockery
homophobic. They did not represent us at all. But the main day was the Creation of Care was actually a 6-hour event that was in one place in the just about a mile away from the Grove, where we brought our own people in. We had the Fukushima mothers, which will tear your heart out if you listen to them. These are mothers from the most affected, radiated places in Japan, and they came all the way over. This delegation came from Japan, and they spoke. And we had Cindy Sheehan come. She spoke. Right. We had the Code Pink women talking about drones. We're in the process right now of connecting who makes the drones to the membership list of the Grove, which we've had for several years. So that's the kind of thing we're interested in doing, is just making these conspiracy theories about they're burning babies at the Cremation of Care and they have underground sex. I mean, they're just silly, and they really undermine the work we're trying to do.
Really, and you've stated, I've heard you state many times, that you wouldn't have the information that you have if it wasn't for your connections from within the Grove, and that's workers inside of the Bohemian Grove. And they will testify maybe back in 1909, before modern times, I would say, maybe some of that occult nature of those rituals they do, the burning of babies, maybe that could have happened in that time. But in present times, these guys wouldn't dare get away with something of that nature. Maybe a effigy, a mock effigies, play or of something of that nature, but definitely not a murder.
Well, it's so bizarre that I can understand where people would buy into that, but that's usually people who haven't really thought it through and are maybe a little vulnerable and susceptible to conspiracy theories, you know. So, I mean, to me, the reality is bad enough. We don't need to go conspiracy on it. It's bad enough, just what's going on. So, of course, we have told people about the cremation of care. And by the way, for those who haven't heard any of this before, there's a 40-foot stone owl there that they cremate care at the bottom of it. And for people who, you know, I know this sounds so surprising to people. It's a ceremony that they repeat every year, and they have a boat, and care, which is actually a bundle of rags, it's not a baby, is dramatically burned through this ritual of care, saying, "You will never banish me. I will come back and get you." We have the actual dialogue, right. And then they go back and forth, and then eventually care is burned, and then they can they do this on the first Saturday of the 2-week engagement, and then theoretically that means they can just let their hair down and get drunk. Now, whether you have to cremate care before you get drunk and have a good time is kind of up for grabs, but you can see and understand why people kind of go, "What?" You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's bizarre. It's beyond bizarre that these elected officials, and many of them who claim to be of a Christian background, would dress up in these black KKK-style robes. It really, to me, looks like a Masonic type of play that's being unfurled. And then also the singing. I mean, I've heard the song. It gives me chills just thinking about it. I mean, that "No far," you know, I mean, it's pretty creepy stuff.
It's bizarre, and it lends itself to conspiracy thinking. Mm-hmm. And I just, I know I sound a little emphatic about this, but it's just that we have to fight this all the time because, you know, some of the stuff that's out on the internet is just silly. And it kind of undermines the point we're making. Again, we're concerned about what they're doing to the outside world. Exactly. And it's all about profit. You know, these men, now you said elected leaders, that's true, but in the pecking order, as you and I know, the elected leaders aren't necessarily the most powerful people.
Right. Absolutely. It's the people that are running them, that are funding them.
It is the elite of the military, the elite of the business world, the corporate world, and the elected officials, and the banking industry. Exactly. It's those four things coming together, and it's the interaction between them that allows them to get away with so much.
Really, without public scrutiny, like you stated.
Exactly.
Now, Mary, I loved your wonderful interview on RT News that was titled "Bohemian Grove Mystery Broken Down." Tell our listening audience where they can find it and a little bit about it as well.
Well, Bruce, you're going to have to tell them where they can find it. I'm 78. I am not proficient on your medium there.
RTnews.com. Just type in Mary Moore, ladies and gentlemen. Great piece. Okay.
There you go. Thank you. Now I know where to go.
Right. Okay. Right. Tell us about that news piece that you did with RT. They came out.
Well, they came out, was it last year or 2 years ago? They came out fairly recently. They've been really on it. I'm impressed with them. They're a relatively new entity. Actually, Russia Today, isn't it?
Yes.
That the RT stands for. Yeah. No, they've done a lot of good stuff. They came out and did an interview, but, you know, it's another interview. I mean, I can't really single out anything in particular about that one. I think the best piece that was ever done on, well, two of them, was back in 81 or 82, Mother Jones came out. We managed I think it was 81, we managed to get a reporter who was on vacation in Monte Rio, which is where the Grove exists. Right. He was his name was Rick Kloger. He was on vacation, and he came across our demonstration, and he got all excited because he understood the implications. His wife said, "Don't you dare get involved in this. We're on vacation," you know. And so he called the magazine, and they said, "Go for it." And at that time, we had our Deep Throat in there. He's now sadly deceased, and we got him in there, and the next year in July, they purposely waited a year, so it would be the same year we'd be protesting again. And that was one of the best, and the other one was in '89, Spy Magazine,
right,
which we are in the process of putting up on a website. I'll give you, there's two websites. One is kind of in construction right now.
Mm-hmm.
So those two, now the RT, I'm not saying it wasn't a good interview,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll have to remind me if there was something special about that interview, because
right.
I'm not remembering.
Well, I saw you were just showing a lot of pictures, a lot of information.
Yes.
You were sharing a lot of information with the reporters regarding the Bohemian Grove and the occult nature behind this place.
Yeah. Well, and the pictures say it all,
Right.
you know. I mean, it is visually, especially the cremation of care, it is, but I do not attribute any, the kind of thing that Alex Jones puts out.
Oh, right.
Because it kind of takes away from the point we're trying to make. The cremation of care, people are going to interpret it any way they want anyway. So who am I to tell them how they should interpret it?
Exactly.
That is not where we spend our time.
Really, you guys are busy pointing out the fact that it was places such as this one where the global power elite met and came up with the Manhattan Project. Why don't you tell our listening audience?
That was in 1942, and that really wasn't, they didn't say we're going to go and invent the atomic bomb. They didn't know that at the time, but they used it. It was off-season. It wasn't in the regular, year, July, but they met up there at the Bohemian Clubhouse, which is shared by all the different camps,
Mm-hmm.
and they just had some of the big people who turned out to be the architects of the atomic bomb, and that's how it formed. It was the very first meeting. And again, it was a good, safe place behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, Mary, as I stated earlier, you came out of retirement really to help pass the torch to other worthy protesters, as you've stated. Were you a little I know you were disappointed with those boneheads in the alternative media like Mark Dice and his friends who showed up and made a mockery of your guys' hard work, basically showing up with his idiot friends, crashing the protest. And basically I wanted to go in the trenches and fight on behalf of the honor of the Bohemian Grove Action Network and let him know personally that he was wrong. And I got into contact with him. He states that he wasn't being homophobic, that he was merely referring to Richard Nixon's quote-unquote faggy comments regarding the Grove, in which he stated...
Right, that's a very famous quote from Nixon.
Right.
Yeah.
But then again, we see how these counterintelligence operatives, what I really think he is, they show up, and instead of really helping the cause, they make everyone there look like a circus clown.
Exactly, but the thing is, the best thing to do about that is they have every right to be there. They can come.
Right.
What it does for me is all I have to do is point out that they're basically, if you want to do that, go organize your own thing. They're leeching on to somebody else's hard work. And, as well as undermining it,
Exactly.
Whatever their purpose is, I can't tell you. I have my theories, but I can't tell you for sure.
Right.
But no, he was not welcome, and it did. But we put on a wonderful event. Everybody that was there really appreciated the event, and we made our point, and we still have that on tape. Somehow I think that could be viewed somewhere. I should have somebody here smarter than me about the Internet to tell you all this. But
it's up on YouTube.
Okay, I'm sure people can find it, but don't put a lot of stock, unless you're so inclined. Don't put a lot of stock into some of the more bizarre rumors that are out there.
Right.
Because this is serious stuff, and like I said, reality is bad enough. We don't have to make stuff up.
And you've said take everything that this guy Jones says with a grain of salt, and I've been listening to your words since I heard you make that statement. I'm taking them to heart.
Well, good. I'm glad somebody is. I mean, it just kind of, if you think through logically, we could make a very bizarre case just on the cremation of care alone,
Exactly.
But But why ignore the reality then? Why not focus on what is really affecting all of us? And that's the policies that come out of some of these ideas that get floated up there.
Really?
And we've told them several times, I mean, not that they would listen, but, hey, if you give us transcripts, if you publish the Lakeside Talks, let the people hear them, we'll go away.
Right.
But that hasn't happened yet.
Well, they know.
I wish they would.
Those crony bastards out there know that they're in direct violation of federal law. That's why they'll be. They'll never get them to do that, Mary.
Oh no, I know. That's all done for the PR factor.
Right,
It's a little shame never hurt.
Exactly.
And all we really have on these guys, they can hire people to outthink, outwit. All we can do is just expose how they are affecting the lives of the rest of us. And I wish that we had been smart enough in 1980 to come up with this concept of 1%. I'm not a total fan of the Occupy movement. I think it made some kind of basic mistakes. A lot of energy came in that was new and a little naive, but still they came up with a concept that I wish we'd had 30 years ago.
Right.
Because it truly is. This is the 1%.
Exactly. And you guys, you had a great event, the Creation of Care event. It was an event and a march as well. And I've had Cindy Sheehan on the show, thanks to hooking up with you and getting to talk with you. She's been on, and also, I don't know if you've heard, but she's running for governor of California, and is also gonna bike across the U.S. and what she's dubbed the Tour de Peace. What are your thoughts on your good friend Cindy Sheehan?
I like Cindy a lot. She came, but you know what? I think Cindy's best working outside the system. That's my opinion. I mean, these struggles with third parties, and there's a lot of infighting between third parties. Unfortunately, it's not just the left or the right. I think most activists need to get over the circular firing squad, so we can get our work done. And I admire Cindy. I liked what she had to say. She did not mince words out there. She's actually said she hated these people, and I'm very grateful that she came out. But I'd like to see Cindy keep her energy out to that. Fight the system from the outside. You can be yourself. You don't have to lie. You don't have to, raise $1 million. We need people pushing from the outside, and we can make our alliances from the almost corrupt people. There's a few, that go in and have managed to stay pure. Not too many, but make your alliances for those working within the system, but understand the limitations of that.
Right, and we see with the political system, it's really disheartening because all these people, they put their stock into Ron Paul. And then we find out what happens with Paul. He doesn't campaign. He secedes to Romney. That's basically what they want you to do. They want you to get all riled up for these people and then knock the wind right out of you.
Yeah, it's you've only got so much energy to put, and I think to me, creating change means you need to focus. You need to look it all over, get a handle on it, and then focus where you think you can be most effective. Now, when I moved up here in 1974, I had no idea we were moving 5 miles away from this place. I had no idea. And then I read, several of us read William Dumhoff's book, on I'm blanking on the name of it. I'm sorry, Bill. But, so then I learned that was 5 miles away, and then just serendipitously, somebody got us a membership list and a guest list of that year of 1980. And so we just started then. And we learned a hell of a lot along the way. And because of this man, Deep Throat, who's now gone, we were able to get a lot of inside information and put it to good use.
Absolutely true. Now, Mary, getting back to your work with the Bohemian Grove Action Network, tell us about your article, Weaving Spiders Come Not Here, or Weaving Bohemians. Tell us about the meaning.
Well, now, I think are you referring to the Mother Jones article?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, that, like I said, that was the first year that we, God, I'm so sorry, I can't remember whether it was 80 or 81 that we met Rick Ploger, but that's the article that came out of that chance meeting with this reporter on vacation in Monte Rio. And it was one of the, I mean, to get a national article like that the first year that we were demonstrating, it was, we didn't think that would happen. And then Jack Anderson did a piece in the Parade magazine, which also was national that first year. And then other people, other national people. And I mean, we've always gotten good press, good local press, because, you know, anything that big, of course, they're going to write about it. But to get national attention the first year, it really did help set us up and give us some credibility.
Right. Now, I was also referring to your, I believe that's you, where you're weaving spiders, spider web.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Oh, okay.
Outside the Bohemian Club?
That was the very first year. That was actually a group of women from San Francisco. And the first year that we protested, it was, you know, the one thing we have on our end is creativity. And boy, do we need it, because we don't have money and resources to throw at this. And so this group of women, I think it was about 20 or 30 women, took it upon themselves to spend several months weaving what would look like spider webs.
Right.
I mean, weaving them out of yarn and all. They brought them up, and it was 1984, excuse me, because that was the first year that we did civil disobedience. And they managed to throw it over the bus that was taking us to jail.
Wow.
They took it right up to the gates to our demonstration, and they had this huge web, and they threw it over a police car, got them all tangled up, threw it over the bus as it was trying to get us back to jail. We'd already been arrested. So it was just an example. That was not me. I mean, I knew that they were doing it, but I didn't personally weave that.
Yeah, it's a great picture of you guys just covering the whole club with spider webs. It really
well, because their motto is, see, there's a connection there. One of their mottos is, which is certainly not true, it says, "Weaving spiders come not here."
Right.
That's an actual motto of the Grove. In other words, denying that any deals are cut. And we're not even saying that they're actually cutting deals. They probably are. I mean, the famous example of that is that Reagan and Nixon met up there to decide who was going to run for president first. But we don't even need to go that far. The fact that these men, like I said, from the military world, from the corporate world, from the banking world, from the political world, and the top, not just the Congress, you know, but the presidents, that they are meeting behind closed doors, doing these talks, and then just in the informal networking, you know, hey, I met old Joe up at the Grove, give him that contract from Lockheed, you know. Right. So a lot of that was to make the point that weaving spiders do indeed come there. Whether they cut the deals inside the Grove is almost not even important. The fact is that's where they network.
Right, and that's also a quote from Midsummer Night's Dream, right, from Shakespeare.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and we mentioned earlier in the broadcast how Bohemian Grove really attracted artists and other people.
That's right.
Of that nature, artistic nature. Now, Mary, as we stated, you helped alternative media kingpin gone mad, Alex Jones, supposedly infiltrate the Grove. Since then, do you have any regrets helping him, or?
I do. Of course I do. You know, I mean, I've been, over the entire 33 years, I've helped a lot of media people, including the first Mother Jones reporter that, you know, we got right away. I've helped several people get in there, and we've also had other people that work with us that help people get in the back way. I've always helped them get in through, you know, a pass with the help of the employees inside. But another way that we've gotten reporters in, and People Magazine comes to mind for that one, was through the back country. They just hiked in, and we had a couple of guides in our group that knew, you know, where to go and how to do it, and so they would get people in there, and you know, they would just kind of, you know, they couldn't claim to be in any particular camp. Like if somebody asked them what camp, they'd have to be kind of evasive.
Right. But
they could, you know, be in the dining room and all, and people just assumed they were, you know,
male
somebody important.
Probably too, right? I heard Jones state that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
I heard him state that he, in a Russian film, Russian documentary film that he was a part of, he stated that he infiltrated the Grove, and I didn't hear him mention you or give you any accolades, but he said that he went in as a male prostitute, him and I believe John Ronson. Now, you wrote a letter to John Ronson too, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was another one of the kind of the fringy thing. I'm a grumpy old woman. I just don't have time to deal with fools. And some of these people that go in in my opinion, for the wrong reasons, to get their book published or something like that. And I think John Ronson, I believe he was English, and he's another one that contacted, and I did help him. And I think that was the year, I could be wrong, that was the year that Alex came in, that they had connected, I think, in Waco, Texas. He was hanging out with conspiracy theorists, and I sort of resented being put in that company. But it wasn't on message, as they say. It was more that flamboyant kind of sensationalist kind of angle that he was coming from.
Right. Now, Mary, it's been widely publicized that many homoerotic activities take place at the Grove. As I just mentioned, Jones tried to get in there saying he was a male prostitute. Now, it also with the fact that they state they actually sacrifice babies there, and as far back as 1909.
According to him, yeah.
Right. What do you make of the whole thing with that dancer, that male porn star Chad Savage, saying that?
Right. Well, again, anybody is entitled to do whatever they want to do. I mean, I can't tell somebody else. I can say how I feel about it, but I can't say go do it.
Right.
I think that it's an angle that I wouldn't focus on. I mean, there's a lot of gay activity out in the world, and so what?
Exactly.
And the fact that, to me, it's the hypocrisy of so many people who would be horrified and would probably vote against gay interests, out in the world, but they would, like our Deep Throat used to say, he was a gay man, and he used to say, it's kind of like the master coming down to the slave house, and so there is a gay scene that goes on up there. The point is, why does it have to be hidden? Where's the hypocrisy around this idea? And why are we even getting excited that it's there? Who cares?
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, no one is against the gay community here, but the thing is, I mean, you have men who are family members who have wives, and they live this secret life, and also they're men of high power. I mean, the military-industrial complex, oil, and it's just bizarre that all this is going on, right?
Well, not only that, but they have prostitutes. I mean, AC/DC, whatever your preference is available to you when you're a man of power.
Right.
So, I mean, while there is a gay scene, there's also a heterosexual scene. Mm-hmm. Why isn't that put as something deviant?
Right. Oh, absolutely true. And again, it's just bizarre how all these allegations have basically come forward in a book about George W. Bush, the whole Chad Savage gate, as I'm dubbing it here, with the ambassador to Poland, Victor Ash. It's just crazy. I don't want to focus just on that, but it's bizarre.
No, it's something for me that I just had to put up with because I get this kind of question, and I just come back to my mantra is, look, we're not focusing on what they're doing in there. Boys will be boys, they're men, they've got the money, so whether it's a female prostitute or a male prostitute, they're getting away for a couple of weeks from their families and their responsibilities. I don't think it's okay, it just is, and I don't care whether it's male or female. You know, that's not what our focus is. They also put on plays up there, and they run around, some of them in pink tutus, because no women are allowed, so therefore some men have to dress in drag. And that's been a big deal, according to some media. You know, well,
Right.
so what? They dress in drag because they're putting on plays and they need women to play the part.
That's how it was done back in the old times. They'd have young boys, I believe, to play the part of females because they weren't fully, matured yet, their voices.
We've got a great picture from the 40s, and I wish I knew who they were, and I wish I could show it to you somehow, but it is four Bohemians standing there fully in drag,
Wow.
you know, and it was some play that they were putting on, you know, but again, that's the focus is then on the Grove and what's happening in there. Our focus is on these speeches behind closed doors that affect you and me.
Right.
You know, and so we have to keep kind of bringing the narrative back to that.
Really?
That I don't care if they're in pink tutus running around peeing on trees. I mean, it's probably not good for the trees. But
you're
that
right.
is one of their famous cliches. You know, they like to pee on trees. Whether that means they feel their penis is as big as a tree, I have no idea.
Really, I mean, they're, like you stated, they're grown men, but when they're making policies out there that affect the rest of us without congressional authority, we got to put their feet to the fire. And
That's exactly right.
also, I mean, like we stated, this is America. I mean, you could worship a flying pig that quotes Shakespeare if you want. That's the beautiful thing. But like we stated, if you are violating the Constitution, we will come after you via whether it's left, whether it's right. It doesn't matter, right, Mary?
Well, not only if you're violating the Constitution, but certainly if you're a Supreme Court justice and you're speaking about the Constitution, I would definitely like to know what you're saying.
Right. Absolutely. Now, Mary, you wrote a letter to Bob Weir, a member of the Grateful Dead. Tell us about that.
And
letter.
to Mickey Hart,
And
yeah.
Mickey Hart.
Well, you know, okay, here we go. The opinionated Mary. I've been an activist for a very long time, and I do remember the Dead. Of course, that was part of the whole scene. How could you avoid knowing who the Grateful Dead were?
Right.
But to me, let's just take the Bay Area as an example. On one side, you had the Black Panthers who were actually out there getting shot and killed. On the other side, you had the white left grooving to the tunes of the Grateful Dead.
Right.
For me, I feel that history will show that a lot more change happened from the east side of the Bay than from the west side. So I've never been a big fan. You know, their music is kind of like repetitive, and it's kind of cool, and it's cool to dance to, but you know, there were other people during that era that I actually personally preferred. So,
Right.
but you still had this certain sense about the Grateful Dead that they were progressive, they were lefties, they were activists, they were cool, you know, all of this. And yet two of them, and I'd like to think Jerry died early. I'd like to think he wouldn't have gone, but
Right.
both Mickey Hart and Bob Weir joined the Grove about 10 years ago. And Mickey Hart, as I explained to you about the different camps, Mickey Hart is in the same camp with Don Rumsfeld.
Wow.
You know, and you kind of would like to know maybe what some of those pillow talk would be about. You know, Bob Weir is in one of the lesser camps. I'm forgetting the name. But, you know, what are they doing up there? And so I wrote a letter. Of course they didn't respond. I never expected them to. But it was satire. I just wrote a letter to just say, oh, I'm sure the only reason that you joined was, you know, to come back and give us information, which, of course, I didn't really believe.
Right.
But it was just satire.
That's awesome. Now, really, Mary, the Grove has had many attempted infiltrations. Heck, I even tried to, just scatter around the woods and get footage, right? And I got to meet you and everything. But, it's had many attempted infiltrations. One of the most famous, as you mentioned earlier, from Spy Magazine, Philip Weiss, I believe back in 1989. Right. Tell our listening audience, who is probably barely tuning in right now, tell them about Philip Weiss and that article he wrote for Spy Magazine.
Well, I have to confess, I did not even know what Spy Magazine was when he first contacted me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so, I just went, okay, here's somebody else. And at that time, we'd gotten several people in there. He seemed like a really good guy, but I didn't know that the magazine would throw as much resources toward this story as they did, and they should be commended for that.
Right.
It's, people can probably Google it, 1989. Oh, do you know the month? Was it? I don't know the month right off the top of my head, but probably 89 is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a serious article, and it went into detail about the connections between these different men, how they can help each other, and just everything that I've been saying. It really took it seriously. It didn't dwell on the silly stuff. It dwelt on the serious stuff. And to this day, I still think that the Mother Jones article from 81 and the 89 Spy Magazine are two of the best. If you want to know more about it in a serious way, those are the two to look up.
Excellent article. I pay homage and tribute to that article a lot. Mary, you stated earlier in the show that you're working on a book. Now, there's also a documentary film, I believe, that was already released titled Bohemian Club, the movie.
No, I do not know about that. I do know about Teddy Bears. There is a movie in progress by Bumpershoot Productions, but it's not out yet.
Okay. Well, yeah, could you tell us about that Teddy Bears Picnic? Right?
Teddy Bears Picnic. Again, if people have been listening, they know that I'm a little cynical on some of the stuff that comes out. This was a Harry Shearer. Most people will know who he is, who does satire. And Teddy Bear's Picnic was about the Grove, and it was, what is the name of the man from Cheers, the guy the heavy-set one that sat on the chair all the time and drank? I'm forgetting his name. But anyway, it starred him and a few other, lesser actors. But it was a spoof, and it really didn't, from my point of view, didn't do much to educate people. It was funny. It was kind of cute. There was a big fire in this movie up there, and they all had to run. Because, this is 2,000 acres in the middle of a redwood forest.
Right.
I don't think I mentioned that yet. So, it very well could be. But in terms of any kind of deep education, no, it didn't do it. I'm hoping that this next film will, because they have really done a lot of research.
Right. And the Bohemian Grove, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to know where it's located, it's located in the small city of Monterey, California, about 70 miles north of San Francisco. Right, Mary?
That's it.
Right.
It's 5 miles from my house. And I live on right off of Bohemian Highway. There's a whole highway here that leads up to it from Occidental to Monterey and to the Grove, and so that's why it's called. So I've had to live for the last 40 years off of Bohemian Highway.
Right. Oh, Mary, I went up there when you came back from retirement to organize that protest. I went up there. Unfortunately, I didn't get to be there with you guys, but I was out driving through the woods, and I got to tell you, I had a crew accompany me. Even my mom went with me, and she took her Bible with her. Okay, that's how she wanted us to get the heck out of there as soon as it got dark. I feel a little bad doing that, but again, I had a security crew with me, a couple of camera people, and then I wanted to take my mom out to San Francisco.
Well, it's actually a very beautiful spot. I wrote a piece 20 years ago called "Open Bohemian Grove to the Homeless,"
right?
Which of course was tongue in cheek and satire and all that. Sometimes you got to make your point with humor,
Exactly.
But it was just the idea that it's 2,000 acres. There's already 127 camps with buildings on them. Let them go somewhere else and open it up to make it a homeless encampment. Let people. It's a beautiful spot. I mean, the physical beauty is gorgeous.
It is.
I understand what you're saying about the psychic feeling.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful area. I love living here.
Oh, it's very beautiful. I would like to go up there again. Now, Mary, you have stated that one of the most powerful things we as journalists can do is publish the guest list of the Grove. Tell our listening audience about that.
Oh, you're getting some good questions because I would have forgotten that angle. Okay, when we first started in 1980, I think for the first 2 or 3 years, they had the guest lists circulating around. What those were, as opposed to the membership lists, were the actual people. See, as I said before, everybody that is a member can bring up one guest, and we, our Deep Throat got us out all the guest lists, and so we had a great time doing research about who was bringing, for example, the outgoing CIA guy then, I think it was McCoy, I'm blanking on the names, what brought up the one that was going to be appointed, the new CIA chief. And so things like that, a lot of them you couldn't make a connection, but there was enough information that it was really good research. And then after about 2 or 3 years, when they realized what we were doing, suddenly there were no guest lists circulating among the members. There was one guest list that was put under glass in the security office. Right. And, that kind of stopped us from doing the research, but in a way it was kind of a backhanded compliment, because they didn't want it known who was bringing who.
Exactly. Right. No, that's absolutely true. Now, Mary, with the summer encampment, I believe only a couple of months away, will you be organizing a protest this year? And
well, we've been meeting to do that. That's an excellent question. We may or we may not. It depends on, there's a lot of ideas. The first few months before we start to get serious, we like to do brainstorming and just float a lot of ideas and see who is attracted to them, because we can't just do the same thing year after year after year. Right. There is already somebody, obviously I think a right-winger, and I'm Joe somebody, who is got a YouTube out. I don't know if you've seen this yet, called Drone the Grove. Have you heard about that?
I have not.
It's a 6-minute YouTube. I don't know how you find this, but you're obviously hip to all this. You can probably find it. It's called Drone the Grove, and he wants to put, you can buy your own drones now on the internet. Wow. And we have been doing a lot of research, which is in the process now. If that research can get done, and this guy wants to do it, we'll just back off and let him have his day. I mean, better him to go to jail than us, So, right. So that is one idea that has been floated. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. Other ideas are a march. We probably won't put on another event like we did last year. If we do a march, it's a big if. Right. It will be very clear what the guidelines are. It will be nonviolent, right. And if somebody doesn't like the way we're doing it, there are 2 weeks up there. We usually do one day, usually around the cremation of care or the second weekend when there's always a big lakeside talk happening. It'll probably be one of those days, but there's 21 days. Right. So let somebody else, if they see it differently, don't come in and try to hijack ours that we put a lot of energy into. Just do your own thing.
And don't grab the police officer's baton, for the life of God, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. I mean, it's a lot of dumb people, let's face it, and that man that last year that got arrested was a man named Doug Millar. Right. And he is local. He's a local nut. So, he just did his thing, and of course we regret that all got hijacked after this wonderful day that we had. Really? But, everybody, I don't care if they're smart or dumb, has a right to go out and do whatever they're going to do. Just please respect a group that has put a lot of work into months of organizing, and at least try to respect the guidelines for that day, and then take another day and make it what you want it to be.
Really? And that is a legendary group indeed, your Bohemian Grove Action Network. Mary, I can't thank you enough for deciding to be on the show once again now that I'm syndicated. Thank you so much for being on today.
Well, thank you for giving me so much time, because it's hard to get all this in a soundbite.
Right. Anyway, Mary, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We look forward to talking to you many more times. Thank you. That was Mary Moore, ladies and gentlemen, of the Bohemian Grove Action Network. Now, sadly, I have to wrap things up here at the Bruce Montalvo Show. But, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to visit us at latalkradio.com and be sure to download the podcasts. Be sure to visit me as well on Facebook, Twitter. We're up on GorillaMediaNetwork.com and KCAARadio.com. Be sure to check out our sponsors. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And again, I'm Bruce Montalvo, reminding you, as always, that the freedom of the press is our right and our responsibility. Till next time.
You're listening to The Bruce Montalvo Show, right here on LA Talk Radio.